Hi, I'm Jay Andrews with Laguna Tools. Today, we're going to do a setup on the SuperMax 25-inch double drum sander. Your drum sander is going to arrive in a box on a pallet just like this. The first thing that you want to do when it arrives is to walk around the box, make sure that there's no shipping damage to the box. If there's anything on the outside of the box that you can see, note it on the shipping carrier's receipt, and then later open the box, and if there's any damage to the machine or the components, give us a phone call so that we can set up a claim there for you. Let's go ahead and get the box opened up. Now you'll notice that there's a wooden pallet inside to protect your sander. I find that it's easiest to remove the cardboard by cutting right along one of the corners of this pallet. Now there's two accessory boxes laid on the bottom. You've got one right here, and this will have your manual inside of it. There's another one in the back with a hood. You'll see that there's a support block right here, and this supports the motor during shipping. As we get ready to move this machine off of there, you'll clear the block out of the way and make sure that you move it parallel with the block instead of forward into the block. Now you'll locate the accessories box and open this up, and inside you're going to find the crank handle, the leveling feet, and the most important item is your owner's manual. Now make sure you take a few moments, read, follow, and understand the instructions inside the owner's manual. This will give you a clear indication how to go through and assemble and get the most out of your machine. The next step is to unbolt the machine from the pallet, and you'll find 4 bolts in each corner. These are a 9/16. Go ahead and loosen and take off all the nuts, and then we're going to tap the bolts down so that the machine can slide off. The next thing to do is to knock the bolts down beneath the pallet. You can grab them on the bottom if you need to. I just use the handle of the hammer, pry them down a little bit, and then finally take a punch to drive them down below the surface. For the next step, we're going to put on the leveling feet, and what we want to do is to slide the machine off of the edge of the pallet. And I like to make a little bit of a support here using some of the 2x4s that the machine was shipped with. And we'll slide it forward onto these and onto the 4x4s here so we can put the leveling feet on. Now this next step you'll want to do with the help of a friend. The machine is heavy and you don't want it to get away from you or to rock on you at all. You'll notice that there's some supports that are down below each of these upper columns. And as you go to move the machine, you want to grab right here by the cast iron frame of the machine or by the pipe. You don't want to grab by the motor or the switch or anything like that. Now with the machine slid forward off of the pallet, it's a good time to install the leveling feet. These will use a 9/16" wrench, and you're going to leave one washer on the leveling foot, put it up through the bottom, a washer on top, and then finally insert the nut and tighten it down with a 9/16 wrench. Once you have the machine on the floor, you can go through and set it for level in your shop. Now with the machine slid out and the back feet out over the floor, it's time to install the last 2 leveling feet. The next step is to put the overhead cover and dust hood in place. I positioned a 4x4 with a scrap of 2x4 on top here, and I'm going to go ahead and rest this on top, flap the hinge over. The screws will come in from the back side, the nut will go on the inside with a washer. This is going to be a 7/16 wrench. Get one started, the other one's pretty easy. Finally, I'm going to snug all these nuts on the inside. That should work out just fine. Now the machine is prepared from the factory, securing the cast iron table support to the column using these set screws. There are 2 jam nuts that need to be loosened. Those are going to be a 1/2 inch wrench. Go ahead and loosen the 2 jam nuts and then back those off a little bit. The next step will be to take an Allen wrench and to just back off the set screw. The set screw is actually what clamps it to the column. So we're going to back those off. And now that those are loose, I'm going to go through and just basically finger tighten that set screw to the column. I don't want any pressure against it, but just finger tight, about like that. And now, holding the set screw so that it doesn't turn, I'm going to use the jam nut to secure it and lock it down in this position. On the opposite side of the machine, the cast iron support bracket is anchored by the set screws and the jam nuts right here behind the switch. The next step is to go through and install the crank handle. There are 2 set screws on the crank handle. There's a long one and a short one. The long one will be up against the flat that's at the top of the shaft. At the factory, they install a support block that goes between the table and the rollers. We'll need to pull that block out by lowering the table with the crank handle. The SuperMax 37 double drum sander is not shipped with a cord or a plug, so you'll need to install one before you power up your machine. Now, if you're comfortable doing electrical work, you can go right ahead and install the cord. If you're not, call a qualified electrician to do this work for you. To install the cord, you're going to need at least a 10 gauge wire going to the machine. You don't want to run this one on an extension cord, so get that power cord the proper length, and we're going to connect it to the bottom junction box of the machine. There are 4 Phillips head screws that hold this cover in place. Remove the screws and bring the cover up to where you can work with it. Again, this is a 5 horsepower motor. It's single phase, and that'll mean that we have 2 hot legs and a ground. On your power cord, you may have a couple of different colors. You're going to find one that's either green, or it might have a green stripe or tracer on it, and then you'll find a black and one other color. It might be red, it could be blue, or it could be a white wire there. But you'll have 3 conductors there total. Slide the strain relief nut over the end of the wire, and then the strain relief collar goes over that next. And now you're ready to install this. We've already gone through and bared the end of the wire and the end of each of these strands here. You'll make sure that these are tight. And now we can stick it through the side hole in the box and make the connections. Now for the ground wire, I'm going to install a ring terminal on the end so I can put it under one of the screws, and we'll get this crimped down. There we go. So now that the ground wire's got a ring terminal on it, I'll secure that to the screw. The 2 other wires are going to use a press-in connector. The push-in connectors use a lever that'll be pulled up. It'll open up the terminal on the backside, slide the wire in, and then finally push the lever down to lock the wire in place. Give it a quick tug test and you'll know you're ready to go. Since it's a 220 connector, you can install them in either direction as long as the ground is to ground and either the 2 hot legs are to the black and to the white wires. There's one connector, quick tug, and then finally the black wire. Push it all the way in and clamp it with a lever. Those two are ready to go. The last one is my ground screw. Now that we've got the electrical connected, I've plugged the machine in, and it's time to test it. The first thing I'll do is check the bed movement here by switching it on. And you can see that it's a variable speed table. The table will power up independently of the head assemblies here. The heads will power up off the main switch. The first thing I need to do is to pull out the emergency stop to where it's in the out position, and you can see the big yellow band right here, and then I can test the head. You can see that the head is spinning by opening the cover and having a look inside. And the E-stop is also your off button. One thing to remember about drum sanders is that they're not a planer, so you can't take big cuts with the machine at a time. When you make an adjustment on the wheel for your next cut, you want to do maybe a quarter turn up to maybe about a third or so of a turn, but not very much, and you'll make light passes with the sander. The good news is you've got two drums, so you can put a coarser grit on the front and a finer one on the back, and you basically get 2 for 1 on each pass. Okay, it's time to test the sander out. I've got this offcut of ambrosia maple that has a little finish on it and some scuffs on it that need to be cleaned up. Let's go ahead and run this through and try out the sander. The first thing I'll do is fire up the sanding head, then get the conveyor belt going, and then finally I'll get the dust collector on. So let's grab the other side. We'll put some marks on it. And I'm going to go through and adjust the depth on it. Don't take too big of a cut. Drum sanders won't take a big cut, so you don't want to do a full turn. Probably about half a turn is as much as you want to go on a single pass on this one here. So we've got our marks here. If you notice the board slow down, that's the IntelliSand working. It's going to slow it down if it's taking too big of a cut. Well, you can see just how nice the finish is on this board. The ambrosia maple here looks fantastic, and this is even with 80 grit paper. Now's a good time to go through and just check, make sure that the machine is working great. This one is working perfect right out of the factory. If you need to make any adjustments, refer to your owner's manual. It'll walk you through any steps necessary to adjust your machine. Now, if you have any questions on the SuperMax 25-inch double drum sander or any of our equipment, give us a call toll free at 800-234-1976 or look at our website at lagunatools.com.